In this video, we're going to look at the top 5 most common questions that Hy-Vee ask in their interviews, and I'm going to help you plan brilliant answers that will get Hy-Vee interested in hiring you. So let's start with a question that comes up in every single Hy-Vee interview, and that is simply, what shifts can you do at Hy-Vee? And a lot of people really screw up this question and lose the whole interview here. So I'm going to show you what you need to show and demonstrate in order to be successful, and also talk about the ways that people answer this question totally wrong and lose the whole interview. So fundamentally, you need to demonstrate 4 things. You want to show reliability, make a point about saying how reliable you are, and if you have a track record of working at other places, you can reference that reliability. If you can get a reference from a manager at your previous job showing reliability, that is a really powerful piece of evidence. It's a good opportunity to talk about your reliability. When you're thinking about what shifts you can do, you need to show off as much flexibility as possible. The more flexibility you can show, the more interested they are going to be in hiring you. You are solving their problem. They want people that are going to staff the store at the times that they need it staffed. And if you are happy to work a wide range of times, that's going to help. You've also got to show a can-do attitude. People who say yes to lots of things and are open to working a wide range of times are much easier to work with. Someone who immediately answers this question with a list of times they can't do, that's going to put them off hiring you completely. They're not interested in hiring people that have a long list of times that they refuse to work. They're just going to see a problem there. And fundamentally, you want to demonstrate some commitment to Hy-Vee. If you're giving them a list of times that you can't work and talking about all the barriers that are going to get in the way of working at the company, then they are probably going to just employ someone else. You're not showing that commitment that they would like to see. Obviously, when you're working for the company, you can have some flexibility and you can work with them and work around that. And if you're giving them good notice about times that you would like time off because of something, you work with the company and that's going to be fine. The other thing you can do to be really successful in this question is think about the key times that are harder to staff and say those times. So what they would like to hear is that you're happy to work weekends, that you're open to working school holidays, if that is a time that you're happy to work. If not, don't mention it. They shouldn't be asking about childcare. That's inappropriate in an interview. And really don't volunteer anything that's not going to help your case. If you're happy to work at the store opening times or late opening, so look at the closing times of the Hy-Vee store, and if you're happy working close to those times, mention it. If you're happy to work at short notice in general, that's a great thing to volunteer. Hopefully they'll have good rotas and that won't happen, but there's no harm in mentioning that. It's only going to work in your favor. A great phrase to use if you are very, very flexible is to say that you're happy to work around business needs and that you have unrestricted availability in general. And so if you do that, you are going to be much, much more successful in this question. The second question that's going to come up is, what can you tell me about Hy-Vee? Sometimes the company will ask you this directly, and at other times there'll be lots of opportunities throughout the interview to show your preparation for this question and demonstrate a good knowledge and understanding of the company. And so when you're preparing for this question, you need to be thinking about it in the terms of this diagram. So you're going to start by talking about some things that everyone knows about the company. And so you'll run through the basic facts, like it being a supermarket, for example. Then you're going to move out and talk about some things that only some people would know about the company. And then to really be very impressive, you want to drop in 1 or 2 things that perhaps even the interviewer didn't know. And by doing that, you're going to really get them impressed with your preparation and planning. So what I'm going to do now is run through some key facts about the company that you should know, remember, and take notes of to be prepared for your interview. So the first fact you must mention about the company, and it's a really, really key part of Hy-Vee, is that it is employee owned. And the big consequence of that is that they have a profit share. So when you join the Hy-Vee business, you are not only joining as a worker, you are becoming part of the Hy-Vee business. You will get the opportunity to participate in owning the company. You're becoming a part owner of Hy-Vee. That opportunity will be there for you. And that completely changes the way that the company is run, the way that the company thinks, and the way that the company behaves. Employee ownership is absolutely central to Hy-Vee. And one consequence of that is that you actually have multiple generations of some families working in Hy-Vee, and that's a consequence of very strong employee engagement and a very, very high employee retention that the company is quite famous for. The other thing you should do is prepare some knowledge of the company's history. The company actually started with a quite historic Beaconsfield supply store. You can actually go and see that. That is part of the state's history. And it's called the Beaconsfield Supply Store. And the company originally was founded in 1930. And you should know that date and remember it. And it was founded by these two men, Charles Hyde and David Freudenberg. Then you can talk about this really key phrase. This is the most famous phrase from Hy-Vee, and it sums up their basic philosophy, which is a helpful smile in every aisle. And really, if there is one thing that you must mention in the interview, it is this phrase. It is the foundational philosophy of the company, and they will be judging you against this. They want to employ people that are going to demonstrate a healthy smile in every aisle. And if you are coming into your interview with a big smile, you're happy to be there, and they get the impression that you're going to demonstrate this, a helpful smile in every aisle, that's going to really help you get the job. And the phrase actually means that they've got a very highly engaged workforce that is fully committed to supporting Hy-Vee's customers and producing an outstanding customer experience. That is what that phrase actually means. And you should also definitely take some time to research the Hy-Vee loyalty program, which is currently the Fuel Saver and Perks program. You should also refer to Hy-Vee as a full service supermarket. That's the phrase that they use to describe themselves. So they're not just providing groceries. There's lots of in-store services like coffee services, for example. There's a whole wide range of services within the store, not just grocery. That's why they refer to it as a full service supermarket. You should also be aware that the company has a large chain of gas stations that supports their supermarket estate. And lastly, before we move on to the next question, one really top tip is to take some time and visit the Hy-Vee news and press release webpage, and you will find up-to-date recent news about the company, and particularly try and find something about your local area and bring that to your interview and talk about that in a really positive way to show that you've researched the company and you have some up-to-date information about them. Right, so let's move on and look at the next really important question, which is, why Hy-Vee? This is one question that you should absolutely not make up on the day. You need to plan and prepare this question because it is so important that you get it right. This is a really, really key question for deciding whether they want to hire you. If you don't have a compelling answer for why you want to work at Hy-Vee and someone else does, the person that has the great answer has got a massive edge. So let's look through the key things that you want to mention in a good answer to show that you really want to work there. So let's look through this list. First thing you want to talk about is, what do you like about Hy-Vee? Be really enthusiastic and positive about the company. List all of the things that you like about the business. Talk about a helpful smile in every aisle. Talk about the employee ownership, and talk about your positive experiences of being a customer there. Then think about, how does Hy-Vee play to your skills? Think about your skills. Are you good at working with people? Are you calm, friendly, patient? Do you enjoy working in customer service? Talk about that. If you're basically saying, I want to work at Hy-Vee because I'm really good at this and this is the skills and experience that I have and it's going to make me great at my job, you can be doing two things at once. You can be explaining why you'll be great for the job and also explaining why you want to work there. The next thing to talk about is the training and progression that you can get at Hy-Vee. You're going to be learning how to work with customers. You're going to be learning lots of customer service skills. And also, there is a long-term career progression available. You could start at an entry level, work your way up into a small management supervisor role, then move into actual assistant manager, and potentially end up as a store director in 10, 15 years, potentially. So you've got the opportunity to have a big, long career here. And you could talk about that in a really positive way. You can link to your interests, think about your personal interests, think about how that matches up with a job at Hy-Vee. And you must be really enthusiastic, show some passion. When you're talking about Hy-Vee, you should really talk about the company very positively, because if you're not going to do that, maybe this isn't the right place for you to work. So let's look at some other things that you could talk about. Talk about Hy-Vee in terms of a long-term career. If you would consider starting at Hy-Vee and then working up the ranks and making this your career, that's a great thing to talk about. You could talk about having been referred to the job by an employee. If you know someone who works there that has suggested that you apply, you can share in their positivity. They could have said brilliant things about the company, and you could say that one of the reasons you're interested in working at Hy-Vee is because you've heard so many good things about the company. Employee ownership is absolutely key to Hy-Vee, and you may say that you would rather work for Hy-Vee because of the employee ownership than work for a corporate grocery store chain. You could talk about definitely how it matches your skills. So think about your skills, think about Hy-Vee as a good match for those. Then you could talk about what we call brand affinity, which is why do you love the Hy-Vee brand? Say all the things that you like about Hy-Vee, use that phrase, a helpful smile in every aisle, and say how you would like to be part of that. Then simply say that you would enjoy working there. If you don't enjoy your job, you're not going to be as good at it. So when you're answering why you want to work at Hy-Vee, say that you think that you will enjoy it. And also definitely talk about your experience as a customer. If you've had great experience as a customer at Hy-Vee, link that to why you want to actually work there. So let's move on now and look at another question that you need to prepare for, which is talking about your strengths and your weaknesses. And again, this is not a question that you should be coming unprepared to. You can't just make this one up on the day. And if you do, you're probably going to pick a bad strength and you're going to pick a terrible weakness. So definitely plan out your answer to this one. So when you're thinking about a strength, you should start by saying a major strength. So it has to be a strength that is a really big deal. And I'll give you some inspiration of some strengths that you could talk about, or you can think up your own one. The next thing you have to do is back it up with evidence. Try and supply some evidence, perhaps an example, a qualification that you have, or a reference from a previous manager that says that this strength that I'm telling you about is real. I've got some hard evidence that backs it up. And then, and really, really important, this point, is that you show that it matters to Hy-Vee. Explain why your strength is a big deal to the company. This is your opportunity to sell yourself and convince them that this strength is going to be really positive to their business. And the way that you structure your answer is really, really simple. You say a major strength that I have is, say what your strength is, and I'll give you some ideas in a second. To evidence this strength, supply some sort of evidence to back up your strength, makes your answer so much more compelling when it comes with some evidence. And then simply say, I will use this strength at Hy-Vee too, and explain why this strength is going to make their business better. Some ideas you could have is reliability. If you're not going to be reliable to your job, you're probably going to lose it for a start, and it's not going to help the business. Reliability is absolutely key in the success of a grocery store. They need people that are going to be there on time to maintain their high levels of staffing and maintain their customer experience. The other thing that you could talk about is customer service experience. If you've got good experience and you can actually supply some evidence of that experience, that's going to give you a big edge. Use that one. If you are really friendly, really patient, that's another great thing to mention. And you could talk about, having a good smile, but not just like I can smile well, but actually talking about your whole mannerism, your enthusiasm, and that you are genuinely helpful. That when a customer has a problem, you greet them with a smile and you sort it out. That can be a real strength, and it links into that, a helpful smile in every aisle. That's really one of the key things that they are assessing you against. So a good smile can be one of your strengths if you build that answer around the whole helpful smile in every aisle idea. So choose a good strength and use that structure and you'll get through that question. So let's look now at the greatest weakness question. And this is where things can go really badly wrong. And you don't want to make up your weakness on the day. And I'll give you some ideas of some weaknesses that you can use. But if you make up a weakness on the day, you can name a weakness that is going to be a big problem. So when you're thinking about your weakness, you want to pick a real one. So for example, I am a complete and utter perfectionist is not an acceptable weakness. The next thing you have to do is actually sort out your weakness. Talk more about what you're doing to fix your weakness and how the weakness is going to go away very soon, rather than talking about why the weakness is going to make you bad at your job. And most importantly, and believe it or not, some people don't do this, is that you must ensure that Hy-Vee doesn't care about it. So choose a weakness that really isn't going to make a big difference to whether you get the job or not, or how good you are at the job. So for example, don't say something like, I have extremely unpleasant body odor and regularly fart in the presence of customers. If you say that, you're not going to get the job. So don't pick a weakness that they care about. When you give your answer, simply say a weakness that I'm aware of is, say what the weakness is, and then don't talk about your weakness in any more detail. Do not go into detail about your weakness. Immediately go into detail about what you're doing about your weakness. Talk about how you're fixing it, not what it is and why it's a big problem and why you'll be terrible at Hy-Vee, because you have such a staggering weakness that's going to ruin everything. Talk about what you're doing about it and just say, I've been working on this by, say how you're going to fix your weakness. So some weaknesses that you could use, and you want to be very careful about which one and consider your local context. So only speak English. Chances are the majority of people going for the job probably only speak English, and it's not going to rule you out, and it's not likely to be a massive problem unless you're applying to a Hy-Vee where there's a high, for example, Spanish-speaking population. So think carefully about that one. It can be one that you can use that doesn't hurt you too much. Public speaking is a good weakness. You are very unlikely to have to give a speech in front of hundreds of people while working on the shop floor at Hy-Vee. Not likely to happen. So use that one. Math and spelling is fairly reasonable weaknesses if you're not applying to a management role. So perhaps choose one of those or make up your own that follows the rules on the arrow. Use the structure that I've suggested and you will survive the greatest weakness question. You're basically looking to survive this one. So let's move on and look at our last question before I go into a bonus, which is questions that you can ask them at the end of the interview. And this question is simply, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And this is an easy question to answer as long as you've actually planned it out and you've thought about how you will answer it. So you're going to have to start by giving an answer that is believable. If they don't believe it, you lose a lot of credibility. If your answer is ridiculous, that you're going to be a store director in 5 years by magic, then they're not going to take you seriously anymore and it lowers your credibility. So make sure it's reasonable. So perhaps look at LinkedIn and see the progression that other people have had and basically tone it down a little bit. Don't go over the top. Make sure you've got a good plan and you've thought about where you want to be in 5 years' time, and make sure you involve Hy-Vee in it. People talk about their 5-year plans without actually involving the company that they're applying for, and that does not go down well. Things you could talk about is earning +1. So how are you going to earn the opportunity to move one level higher? One level is always reasonable in 5 years. 5 levels, not so reasonable. And you must talk about it in terms of earning it. How are you going to earn the promotion? So you could talk about in your first year, you're going to learn how to be great at your job and you're going to develop into a really amazing employee that is a model employee, for example. You could say that you just want to be outstanding at your current role, that you're not interested in progression, which is fine. Talk about how you're going to be absolutely amazing in your current role. Say, for example, that you'd be interested in 5 years' time in being someone that they would look to help train new staff because you're so good at the job that you're doing. Another thing that you want to talk about in your answer is CPD. So that is what's called continuing professional development and also personal development. How are you going to get better at your job? So you're going to do lots of training that's offered by the company and you're going to be learning every single time you're at the company. The way that people mess up their answer is they start by just saying something that's just stupid. They just have this completely ridiculous plan that doesn't match up with reality and they lose credibility. They can offend the interviewer by basically saying, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be your boss. So in 5 years' time, I'm going to get further than you are. So be conscious of the person that's interviewing you and don't talk about in 5 years' time that you're going to have a job that is higher than them. that's really not going to go down very well. And basically anything in your 5-year plan that is not relevant to making Hy-Vee's business better is not going to help you at all in the interview. And the worst thing that you can ever say at this point is, I want to get a better job somewhere else, or even convey the idea that this is a short-term job, you just need it for the money, and really you want to be working somewhere else. The interview for the job is not the time to discuss leaving the company. Absolutely steer clear of that. If you say that in the interview, it's probably going to be all over. So before we finish, let's go on to a bonus, which is some great questions to ask. The first question you want to be thinking about asking is about what happens next. You've got to the end of the interview, you want to find out what's the next steps. When are you going to hear back? So ask them about the next steps in the hiring process. If you don't ask about it, it looks like you're not terribly serious. You can also get an opportunity to share in their enthusiasm for the company. Ask them what they most like about working at Hy-Vee and share their enthusiasm for that aspect of the role. You can also ask them, what would you suggest that a new hire do now to be very, very well prepared for starting? Show that you actually care about being effective at your job and you want to be well prepared. You can also ask them about employee ownership. So how does employee ownership set Hy-Vee apart from the competition? And share in their enthusiasm and passion for the employee ownership model. You can also ask them to describe the perfect Hy-Vee employee. And then they will tell you basically what they're looking for, and you can engage in a conversation about how you meet that and re-emphasize some of the really key answers that you've given in the past about why you'd be a good hire for the company. And lastly, you need to make up one question on the day based on what has happened in the conversation on the day. So as the interview goes through, listen carefully to what they're saying and think up a question. So if you follow these tips, you're much more likely to be successful. The fact you've got to the end of this video is a really great thing. You're going to have much better prepared answers. Now, I hope that you're successful in your interview. If this video has been helpful to you, please like it so other people can find it, and comment below so that we can see if you were successful, and share some questions and experiences that you had at your interview to help others. I hope this video was very helpful to you. I wish you the best of luck in your Hy-Vee interview. And finally, thank you very much for watching.